We're going to look at the leg extension. So the only way we can really challenge the quad in that fully shortened, contracted range here. So that's when we get the leg towards the lockout, towards that end range extension. So a couple of things to look at first before we even start moving the load is we have to look at the setup considerations. So first thing is actually going to be body position. We need to be very careful about how much we actually lean forward or lean back in this position. Now, often a lot of people will lean forward to try and get more quads, but actually really what we want is either somewhere between an upright position or actually sitting back against the back pad here. The second thing we look at is then the hip position, ensuring that the hips stay completely still throughout the entirety of the movement. Now, one thing we look at, obviously, if you don't have like a band or a seat belt, is we can pull ourselves down hard into the seat, grabbing these handles and pulling our body hard into and if you just do a rep mile. And as you'll be able to see, as you pull yourself down here, that allows you to direct all of your tension through the quads here. Now, something that can assist us, especially when we start reaching loads, which relative to that individual's body weight are starting to get pretty high, there's sometimes a propensity for the hips to want to lift up out the seat or to slide up and down the seat. So what we can do instead is we can add a band that's going to help us to secure those hips fixed in position. And then combine that with pulling down on the handles. This really provides a solid base for us to then be able to focus on just extending the knee. So there we go. So this provides a plenty of bracing. Now, as far as mistakes that people will often make, first obvious and common one is going to be either throwing the weight up. So this is not a movement where we want to be flinging the weight up and down. And as you'll actually see, I can almost catch that pad because there's literally an air time. The pad is physically leaving the shin, which we don't want. We want that placement pad in contact with the legs there and really smooth contractions and endpoints as well. Next thing we're going to be looking at as well is big mistake is often the knees will roll in or out in order to try and compensate. So a good cue to think about is we think about that kneecap, that patella, we want to think about that being in line the whole time, both up and down the leg, but also in terms of up towards the ceiling. If you almost think about it, you want this facing up at the top of the movement, that's going to be ideal. Now in terms of execution, last thing is remember, even though it is a short and range challenge, we want to make sure that we're actually keeping tension in the quad throughout the entirety of the movement. So you want to almost think about contracting into the pad before you even start the movement, making sure that the tension's on the quads right from the get-go, extending through to the top, making sure that you don't short yourself. So if you were to do a rep where you don't lock out, many people will stop here and that's not challenging the quads where we really want it. We want to make sure that we get right into that shortened position and really get those quads fully short in that end range. And one more. Great. So leg extensions, big considerations, full control throughout the entirety of the movement, hugely important.